thanks to the Schoolyard Theatre and bring everyone's attention to the emergency doors on either side and through the door at the back where you've come in. And please, a reminder on mobile phones, if you can turn them off. I'll do the same myself now in a minute. But I'd just like to thank the Schoolyard Theatre. The theatre has been here a long, long time, and it's really important to support the local theatre here. And please take note of the events. There's a lot of lovely events coming up here in the theatre, and they're posted outside if you want to take a scan of that. And there's always different things on and something for everyone. So, so here we are. I'm MC for the night, and hopefully I won't trip up. So I'd just like to thank Charlie and Catherine for the music, and they'll be coming in with different pieces during the course of the event. So I'd like to start by asking Dominic Taylor to speak on behalf of the publisher. So thank you.
And I'd just like to welcome everybody to the launch of Fiona Fitzpatrick's new poetry collection, Crank It Up, from Revival Press. My name is Dominic Taylor, and I'm the director of the Limerick Writers Centre. And tonight I'm proud to say we celebrate the 217th title published by Limerick Writers Centre across its 3 imprints of Revival Press, our poetry imprint, Savoy Editions for genre and literary fiction, and Limerick Writers Centre Publishing for non-fiction. But before I talk about Fiona and her book, and we hear from Bernadette Knopek, who will officially launch the collection, it would be very remiss of me tonight not to mention our dear friend and poet Donal O'Flynn, who passed away in December. I first met Donal in 2003 at a series of workshops organised by the Limerick County Arts Office in Limerick and hosted by the poet Joe Slade. What I recall is a room full of nervous poets, and Donal already carrying that unmistakable presence, quiet, steady and utterly sincere. Even then, before we had the privilege of publishing his debut collection, Lost Grace, in 2009, he had an air of someone who wrote because he had to, because the words were a kind of truth-telling he couldn't turn away from. Since then, we were delighted to publish 3 other collections. The final one, Matic, which we launched in this space in 2023. And I know that he would be overjoyed here that tonight we are launching Fiona's new collection on this very stage, and when she gave the launch speech for Matic. What I remember most about Donal, of course, is his spirit, strong, generous and unpretentious. He encouraged, he listened, and he showed up, and he kept writing, always writing, with the same passion that first brought him to the craft. And even when he was ill, he still supported his fellow poets by buying their new books once published. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's no one else has such a large collection of Revival Press books on their shelves. But thankfully, his own poems remain clear, brave and full of love, to carry his voice forward and will forever echo in our hearts. For those of us who met him, even briefly, Donal O'Flynn is remembered not only as a poet, but as a man of integrity and heart. His work continues to shine with grace he never claimed for himself, but gave freely to others. So to move on to Fiona's book, through these 50 pieces of wonderful words, Fiona's skill as a writer shines throughout, with complex contradictions inspired by Auden in the opening poem. We get glimpses inside homes and hints of what might go on behind 4 walls. There are rites of passage and moments of harrowing loss, punctuated with wonderful humour in poems such as Poets Are Proper Weird, Lumpy Me and Obituary. The personal is balanced with attention to the wider world, summed up succinctly in the things that matter, as well as treats for the senses like the lingering aroma of redbreast single pot still, all culminating in A Leap of Faith. So on behalf of Revival Press and the Limerick Writers Centre, Gorav Mahagat, Fiona, for choosing Revival Press as a home for your poetry. Thanks again to the Schoolyard Theatre for hosting this event, and a special thanks to our team at the Limerick Writers Centre, including Tommy Collins, who's the editor at Revival Press, but unfortunately could not make it here tonight, and also our design team, led by Catherine Shields. It's fantastic to see such a crowd here tonight to support Fiona and her writing, and I would encourage you all to pick up a copy or two, as I'm sure you'll find it a real treasure to keep and to revisit. Congratulations, Fiona, on a fantastic collection, and we hope it is a ladder to the stars for you. Thank you very much. So I'd like to call on Sister Bernadette Knopek to deliver the opening speech, and just like to say thanks to Bernadette. She's practically part of our family and has been part of all the different writing groups here in Charleville for quite a many years. So I'll leave it in your hands for the opening.
Thank you, Robert. Go léir agus céad níl fáilte den ócáid speisialta seo. I am absolutely delighted and I feel privileged to have been asked by Fiona to launch her first published collection, Crank It Up. Tonight really is a celebration of Fiona's creativity and of her years of hard work, culminating in this beautiful book. Now, if you want to know who Fiona is, you go to page 69 and you read about her. And if you want to be introduced to her family and friends and some previously published poems, go to the previous page, page 68, and you can read all of those things yourselves. But in the meantime, we'll delve a little further. Now, just to put you at your ease, because it's a launch speech, it will last approximately 15 minutes. So that's how long we'll be on the slipway. And at the end of it, we will have this book right into the public domain. Now, when you read the poems, you'll get to know Fiona at a much deeper level than what you read on page 68 or 69. The collection is really like a window into the world where she is passionate about many things. Her poems are a testament to her relentless desire for justice, her care and concern for others, her journey with loss and grief, and above all, her dedication as a mother, a strong, resilient woman. Fiona has the gift of weaving the personal with the universal. And when we read the poems, we'll discover that many of them reflect our own life experiences. But before we look at the poems, we'll take a glimpse at the very distinctive cover. If you've been wise enough to buy the book before the launch, you can have a look at it now. On the side here, there's this little image. And the whole design was a response by Fiona's daughter, Grace, down there, when they were reflecting on the themes of the book. The little ankh, see him here? This is a symbol of resilience. The lifeline spreads out from the ankh, and if life gets tough, do you come to a full stop? No, you don't. You just come to a semicolon, a little pause, and the lifeline continues because you crank it up. So I think Grace deserves a bull of us for putting all the thought and work into that. Now, we're also going to take one peep at the back cover, because there are a few blurbs there, and one of them caught my attention. It's what Vincent Browne, and you all know who I'm talking about, the broadcaster and journalist, he described Fiona as, this is what he said, the wonders of the polymath poet Fiona Fitzpatrick. Now, truthfully, I had to go to the dictionary to look up the meaning of polymath because I wasn't certain of it. And it said, a polymath excels in multiple fields. Thought that was a bit dry. So I went a bit further and I modernised myself and I went to Google. And Google was much more colourful because it started talking about Aristotle and Leonardo da Vinci. So Fiona, you're in good company. Then Google listed some of the traits of the polymath. Do you want to hear them?
Yes.
A polymath is, watch out for it, unconventional, proactive, takes the initiative, highly resilient. All four apply to Fiona. And then, as a sign of a polymath's independent thought and creative spirit, and in a good way, a polymath is a little weird. So, when I saw that, a door opened and I said, I know where I'm going to start in the poetry reading. Poets are a little weird. And she said it herself. So, my gateway was from Google. Poets are proper weird. Filling white space with words that weave pictures in a reader's mind. Challenging the reader's mind to question and ponder the questions they pondered while filling white spaces. The questions they pondered slip subtly into words that weave pictures like clouds tiptoeing in space. A reader's mind dances with the white space filled with woven pictures, thinking, poets are proper weird. So, what kind of a poet is Fiona herself? She actually tells us in a few pages on in a poem called The Bard. I'm nothing special, not a well-known poet or acclaimed artist, just a girl who thinks bad thoughts, sad thoughts, mad, political, wondrous thoughts, and I write them down. Sometimes I have broken thoughts, hideaway, defensive thoughts, challenging crap and bollocks thoughts, and I write them down. But the worst thoughts are the silent thoughts that cannot be shared in case thoughts. They stay in my head and scream. Fiona, thank you for telling us. So, she thinks thoughts and she writes them down. And another poem I'm going to read is about the things that matter. And if you've bought the book, it's on page 58. And when you read that poem, note the sarcasm, because Fiona's care and concern and desire for fairness are so evident. And in the society we're living in, you'll see what she thinks. The things that matter. I'll just read a few short extracts. Let's talk about the things that matter. Instagram trends and influencers, not homeless people making us feel bad with their sullen faces and empty eyes. Let's talk about the man down the road whose house is repossessed. A bad credit risk, what did he expect? Not the bankers and politicians who stripped the flesh from our nation and drained away every drop of blood from its people, calling it necessary austerity, propped up by a system designed to protect the rich. Let's not see children in need of food or new shoes that fit properly. turn a blind eye to monsters bombing babies, forget about famine in far-flung places whose names we cannot pronounce, while the fat cats struggle with obesity. Let's talk about people, not to them, when they need a kind word or a smile. Isn't that very challenging? Thank you, Fiona. Now, many of Fiona's poems deal with loss and grief, and she herself will read some of those poems later on. But in her collection, the times of tears are balanced by humour. And Lumpy Me has already been mentioned, and it's one of the pieces that I had picked out to read. So this is a dialogue with Lumpy Me and Skinny Me. Skinny Me had skin like honey, smooth and ironed, glossy, uncoloured hair, and toned legs in short skirts, flat and fun. Lumpy Me stares from a glass reflection, all bumps and rolls, silvery stripes and marks of motherhood, tinted and tired. Skinny Me skipped under dark clouds and waves of terror, avoided obstacles with the precision of an endangered leopard. But Lumpy Me walks in the sunshine, smiling, happier with you. And we know who that was written for. Now, Fiona also tells us about another walk she took, and it's on page 53. It was during COVID. So this is actually a morning walk. April 2020 is the title, and it's written about a fictional place, and the setting and the feelings are familiar because, you know, we all went through this sense of loss and being deprived during COVID. So I just read a little piece from the final stanza. I walk, then run, gasping, walk again, heart pounds painfully. Clouds build up in my breast, demanding to be heard. Tears vomit from my eyes, and I sob for all that's lost and changed. The storm passes into quieter waters, and I turn for home. I finish my journey, plaster a hopeful smile on my sun-dried face as I breathe out. I push the door and return to my maternal role. And that maternal role features hugely in the collection. I think I counted about a dozen poems that speak of some aspect of motherhood. And one of the sad aspects is war and death. And the next poem I'm going to read is about a mother that has been lost in the war. Masalama Mama. And Fiona wrote this piece about maybe 20 years ago when she was out in the Middle East, but it could actually have been written after looking at last night's news. So I read Masalama Mama. Broken, she stares at the blood-stained rubble. Frozen, bullets dance around her while she holds her mother's lifeless hand. Alone, her tearless eyes are blinded by dusty sand. All around her, screaming sirens echo the anguish of a nation while the world looks away. So I think the response to that is really silence for all the war-torn zones in the world at the moment. So we'll return to the happier side of motherhood, and I'll finish with these two short pieces. One of them is a lovely, homely, domestic kitchen scene where I can actually picture Fiona and the lads baking. And it's a beautiful poem called Yum Yum, but I'm just going to read the last 3 lines. A dash of heart, a spoon of time, that's T-I-M-E, a pinch of thought, a pint of patience, a shake of smiles, sweet tasty cake proclaims a mother's love. And the last poem I'll read for you is on page 28. It's called Moments of Magic, and it is a moment of magic. You're the best mum, they told me, with bubbly laughs and wide-eyed light. And I smiled happily, wondering what I'd done now to deserve such accolades. Some days it's because I hold them tight while thunder rages. Sometimes it's for long hours sitting in dreary car parks waiting. Some weeks it's for coffee cake, baked and fresh new bedwear. Sometimes it's for problems shared and teased and solved. Some days it's big surprises arriving. Sometimes it's a small favour done with love. And sometimes it's just because I feel them. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? So it's not just the family that Fiona feeds, you know. Fiona has an open house. So many are welcome there. And I'm one of the lucky people that feels so much at home, feels so much part of Fiona's family. And so Fiona, I personally want to thank you for being my wonderful friend for not just days or weeks or years, but for decades. Fiona and myself met, first of all, on the steps that you've just come up, outside the theatre door there. There was some writers' festival on, and we were chatting, and Fiona said, wouldn't it be a great idea to start a writers' group? So there and then, the Schoolyard Scribblers were born. We developed into the Scattered Scribblers during COVID, when we met on Zoom. And now we have graduated to Scribes and Scribblers. People have come and people have gone. But Fiona is the glue that's holding the group together. And Fiona, thank you for even the latest group that's meeting in the Chapel Heritage once a month on a Saturday. Fiona is the person that spearheads everything. She keeps us together and encourages us. Fiona, thank you for all of that, because we don't take it for granted. As Dominic said, we just hope that you'll continue up this stairway. You're going to keep going. Thank you, Fiona, for being an inspiration to us. This book, you know, I think it will challenge you and it will comfort you. I think it will make you cry and it will make you laugh. So be wise enough to treat yourself and buy it. And as Dominic said, buy a copy for a friend or for other people. And I suppose, finally, I must say that in the darkest part of my life, after my mother died, Fiona was one of the great supports I had. You don't remember this, Fiona, but I do. She came up to me one day with a mug and coaster set. And on it were written, "Friends are the angels who lift us up when our wings have forgotten to fly." I'm going to repeat that because I think it's so beautiful. Friends are the angels who lift us up when our wings have forgotten to fly. Fiona, thank you for being that friend to me.
So I'd like to call on Fiona now, and she will do some readings for us, and we'll call on the musicians whenever she's ready.
Cumana díobh go léir agus na fóta roimh go léir anseo anocht. Tá an áthas orm an uird sin bhína a eicáil, just go raibh míle maith agat. Thank you so much to everybody who is here tonight. I'm a little bit humbled and very thrilled and grateful that so many of you have come out to support me, and I thank you very sincerely for that. I also want to add my thanks to the Schoolyard Theatre. This is a beautiful venue. It has played a very big part in many parts of my life, And we're very lucky in Charleville with the amenities that we have. And it's a great credit to the people who keep this going, because it is a beautiful space, and I, for one, certainly don't take it for granted. So thank you, and may it continue to flourish. Thank you also to Revival Press, to Dominic, to Tom, and to all the team for creating this beautiful book. And thank you, Grace, for sharing your artistic talents with me and designing the front cover. You're a star. Many people gave of their time to go through this collection and critique it and give their opinions and write the blurb for the back. And for that I'm very grateful, because I know that everybody is busy. I'm especially thankful to Bernadette, to Leanne O'Donnell, Cork County Council Writer-in-Residence 2025, to broadcaster and journalist extraordinaire Vincent Brown. And there I must pause, because the fourth person who critiqued this and wrote this blurb for me was Donal O'Flynn. He was extremely unwell at the time, and he still stepped forward to help a friend. I know that I wouldn't be here tonight only for him, and it is only fitting to take a moment to pause. As many of you know, Donal was a prolific writer himself. He encouraged and challenged all the writers around him to explore new forms, to push boundaries, to work on being disciplined. Now, he definitely succeeded with the first two. I'm sad to say we're still working on the discipline aspect, because nobody was more disciplined than Donal O'Flynn. He wrote every day, and his passion for word was incredible. I'm going to begin this evening by writing a piece that I wrote for Donal at a time when he was quite ill, and I sat down and I wrote this at my impressions of Donal, and I was so grateful that I was able to present this to him and include it in this collection with his blessing. So, for Donal O'Flynn, the wordsmith. He opens the leather journal with the deep cream paper. Bold pen strokes strewn across parchment hint at stories to be told. Clearing his throat, he speaks softly. His words flow into the crowd as a whisper, a roar, a heart leap or punch in the gut, a smile, a tear, a raw emotion that engages, challenges, and sometimes confuses the listener. The poem is a journey, an odyssey, each word crafted and polished with wisdom. Gravel-like tones unleash the power of this poet into a silence that follows afterwards. The tradition of the masters gone before, brought back to life in his passion for word. Donal O'Flynn will never be forgotten by us in the writing community. And I'm going to pause for a moment. I'm very grateful to have his brother-in-law Charlie and Catherine here, and they're going to do a song, and we are going to remember.
Of all the money that e'er I had, I spent it in good company, and all the harm that e'er I've done, alas, it was to none but me. For all I've done, for want of wit, to memory now I can't recall. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. If I had money enough to spend, and plenty time to sit a while, there is a fair maid in this town, who sorely has my heart beguiled. Her rosy cheeks, her ruby lips, she has my heart enthralled. So fill to me the parting glass. Good night and joy be with you all. Of all the comrades I ever had, they are sorry for my going away. And all the sweethearts that I had, they would wish me one more day to stay. But since it has unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I will gently rise and I'll softly call. Good night and joy be with you all. But since it has unto my lot that I should rise and you should not, I will gently rise and I'll softly call. Good night and joy be with you all.
Thanks, guys. I think that was just perfect. So, to me, I have never really wanted to be what I would call an academic poet. I've always wanted to make connections. So if you read this collection and at some stage you smile, or you cry, or you get angry, or you just think about things, then for me that is a success. It's probably no great surprise to anybody who knows me in any shape or form that I'm going to start on a more political note. I have form, I know. And I am going to start with a poem that I wrote quite a while ago. And very, very sadly, it's just as relevant today as when I first wrote it. I don't think that in all my lifetime I have ever seen so much war and bombings and hatred and savagery. And I'm a big believer that the world will not be saved by soldiers, and the world will not be saved by armies or more weapons. The world is more likely to be saved by our writers, our musicians, our artists and poets and people who love. As feathers fall. Vote for me, the despot smiles, with promises to lure the giddy crowd. He chuckles as they lap up his wild visions for the future and sing aloud. Stand with me, the despot grins, as guns roar over the gathering and bullets cow the ones who'd sin by speaking against their self-made king. The time is now, the despot calls, as he stands and smiles at his captive crowd. Young men called up, his army rallied to advance his dream. He laughs aloud. War sends young men to prove the might of those powerful men protected from the fight. Things sometimes seem like they never change, but may we all be voices for peace. We sure need it right now. I'm going to move on, and I'm going to read a poem that has resonated with quite a few people who have already seen the collection. And I must say that I am delighted to have members of the O'Hare family here tonight. I want to thank Ronnie especially, and also Rob. Ronnie for allowing me to have this poem in this collection, and Rob for sharing your story and your memories. This poem is called Farewell Old Stock, and it's in memory of Pat O'Hare. Pat O'Hare was a gentleman. He was a character. Many of us, when we think about Pat, think of the international man of style. And all I can say to that is, if you know, you know. And if you don't, good luck trying to figure it out. Farewell, old stock. Thump, thump, stomp, stomp. Feet punch well-worn pavement beneath a canopy of leaves where birds trill and twitter. I'm in no mood for their chirpiness. The text hit me hard, your name, R.I.P. Story ended. We met as kids when the world was simpler and the crack was everything. Grew into men as the world grew with us. Was there when you met the love of your life, went from wingman to gooseberry in the bat of an eye. Driver permits brought license to fly, Wednesday afternoons bunking off school, driving, we had it all. Late night walks through deserted city streets, we were kings, singing at the top of our lungs in crow-perfect harmony. We'd had a few, it's true, but man, we flew the long trek home. Life moved on. Weddings, houses, travels, responsible men with responsible jobs in far corners of the world. And life twined. Work chats, holiday chats, rugby chats, back then chats, hospital chats, long chats, last chat. Farewell, old stock. Experimenting with form and reading poetry was something I got to love during lockdown. I studied form and metre, and one of my experiments led me to write a poem called A Woman of a Certain Age. I took lines from poems that I love in the cento style, and the poems that I used were Daffodils by William Wordsworth, The Mother by Padraig Pearse, The Brook by Alfred Tennyson, The Cage Bird by Maya Angelou, Sick Room by Billy Collins, and Fear by Raymond Carver. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, then sat upon a rocky stone and thought of all my unpaid bills. Lord, thou art hard on mothers, we suffer in their coming and their going. I'm just the taxi driver now, with their toing and their froing, never-ending laundry and food to cook all day, while my waistline thickens daily and my hair is turning grey. I come from haunts of coot and turn, I feel the need to dally. And yet I cannot move a foot. I feel the need to dally just a while, a little while, just a moment longer. The caged bird sings with fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. Tears fall down with pulsing rage that tear and pierce my ravaged face, and I am lost in lonely space, weeping for my freedom. Every time Canaletto painted Venice, he painted her from different angles, sometimes from points of view he must have imagined. But as I gaze on the leafy vista below, I see only ugliness. And anyway, I am not Canaletto, and I cannot paint. Neither the ugliness beneath me, nor the ugliness growing within me. I am choked by so many fears. Fear of falling asleep at night. Fear of not falling asleep. Fear of falling asleep and not waking up. Fear of falling asleep and never finishing that goddamn laundry. I'm going to take a pause for a moment.
So now we'll continue, and I'd like to invite Dave Gormley, who is here and was part of the original Scribblers. So Dave, I'll...
The saddest, bleakest poem I've ever written. A crow too slow. Oh, crow too slow, how did you go to get yourself this way? Legs askew, bones in two, feathers disarray. Misplaced timing, death toll chiming, put end to your play. Late feathered flight led to plight on this your final day. Oh, crow too slow, how could you know that playing with the traffic would lead to such untimely death, a fate that's oh so tragic. As you reared, car horn blared, shook you to your senses, hit the grill, life did spill. Oh, for contact lenses. Oh, crow too slow, whose life did throw, on this sad fateful day, will ne'er see friends nor kin again, wander, fly nor stray. High above, black crowd forming, a frenzied circling circus, swooping, flying, picking, dining, all one's tasty carcass. Thank you.
Never gets old, huh? Brilliant. So I'd like to call on now Helen Farrell, who is part of the new writing collective here called Scribes and Scribblers.
Thank you. Congratulations, Fiona, on your fabulous collection, and thank you for inviting me to read. I hope my voice now holds up. Mam's peony rose. When your peony rose died back, you dug up the tuber and carefully cut a section to transplant to my garden. You showed me, the novice gardener, the crown buds on the root that would come through the ground in late spring. I carried home my heirloom, planted it facing south as you'd instructed, watered it and nurtured it. The first green shoots sprouted late in May, no flowers appeared. 2 years later, from lush foliage, a lone bud burst, revealing a magnificent bloom in luscious magenta. You were still with us when the wind played havoc with the plant. As I staked the delicate stem, you cupped the flowerhead in your palms. A sudden gust of wind whipped the flower bud from your feeble hands, strewing velvet petals around the garden. I have inherited your green fingers, and my garden now has a multitude of flowers, but your peony rose is my pride and joy. Thank you.
like to call on Pater Summers, who's also part of the new collective.
Yeah. I'd like to just say as well, I lived most of my life in France, and I was looking for a writing group there, but I didn't find one. And when I came back here, Bernadette mentioned in the introductory speech about the importance of benevolence for Fiona. And Fiona's leading our group, and I would like to say that she's a very benevolent person, and it's great for aspiring writers and aspiring poets. So, you might have heard, it's purported that Julius Caesar said, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears." But tonight I want to ask you to lend me your noses. Because in France, having a nose, or being a nose, is actually a very profitable profession. And even in Ireland, and I work in the food industry, having a nose for being able to grade cheese is actually a very proficient skill. So, this poem is called Anosmia. And the first verse I will read in French, because I originally wrote it in that language. But you will understand, and I'll go into English straight after. So, j'aimerais être un nez français, convaincu d'avoir raison, et le nerf de déchiffrer le cassis, la banane et le cuir. Ces notes de noblesse qui se cachent dans les fûts de Syrah. I wish I was a nose, a French nose, cocksure of being right, and with the nerve to decipher blackcurrant, banana, and leather, the noble notes of oak hiding in the casks of Shiraz. I wish I was a nose, a confident nose in all things olfactive, perceiving a third dimension in the blue of Roquefort, no longer varicosed sheep curds, but become big king of cheese. I wish I was a nose, a Michelin nose, smelling stars in cassoulet, garlic, rosemary, laurel and sage. A nose designed with taste, dressed for gastronomy, and a certain je ne sais quoi. I wish I was a nose, but I've no discernment. Just a double-barreled stub, flaring, yet flaring nothing, forever lacking character of the nose. I wish I was.
Very well done, Pater. So I'd just like to call on for some music.
We're going to crank it up now. The lively ones.
call on Fiona to give a final address on behalf of us, from me, and from all the gang, the Fitzpatrick clan. We'd just like to say how immensely proud we are of Fiona and how much we love her. And we're so proud of this publication. It's a long time coming, and hopefully the first of many. So,
Yay!
I do like to have the last word. I'm just going to read the next poem. Obituary. If only she'd known that all she had to do was die, she might have died years ago. Death crept in and painted her in gold, erasing all whispers of ugliness. Fragility morphed into strength and cushioned her with pillars. She went from could do nothing right to a moral superiority she'd probably have laughed at. Friends crawled from the woodwork with funny stories and tributes of magnificent proportions, which ignored the naked loneliness she'd felt when breathing. The reaper shadowed her while she was battered by opinions that death quickly overturned. She was right, everyone said, went from dubious to saintly in a minute, canonized by condemners. Ah, if only she'd known that all she had to do was die, she might have died years ago. One of the biggest influences that shaped my world and our world was the loss of our son Joe. Joe was born too early, and it's a tough road to navigate this. It's a different type of loss. There are no shared experiences or memories to find comfort in. There aren't any moments of magic. For many years, I tried desperately to write a poem for Joe, and I just could not do it. And then a bit like waiting for a bus, you know, when you're waiting for a bus and you wait and you wait and then 2 or 3 come together. Well, after many, many years, I wrote a number of poems in a very short space of time. A number of them are in this collection. But I'm going to read a poem which is very much about the universality of the loss of a mother. It's simply called Mommy. She is the mother, violated virgin, holder of faith, birth giver in a stable, visited by high and humble, present at the beginning and the end, occasional glimpses between. A mother, watching her son's blood fall upon the darkness of humanity, feeling his thorns pierce into her strength, his pain howling in her stoic silence. A voiceless supporter, silenced by the fetters of dark mores. It wasn't all water to wine stuff, though. There must have been tantrums and tears, heart-stopping moments of wonder as he walked, talked, grew into her God. A glossy vessel of purity, who wept in anticipation, knowing there would be no golden age of gurgling grandchildren in a safe place to rest her aching bones, weeping from the beginning for the end. A mother of mothers, joined in a bloody communion of tears through time, with goodbyes that begin with hello. And I'm going to finish on this one. My own personal and present journey has been very much shaped over the last 5 years by illness. But as I was told once, in every tragedy there's a blessing. Every cloud has a silver lining. And I've come very much to see the truth in this. When I first became ill, I lost so much. My world shrank. I went from being bedridden to being housebound. And I still retain some limitations. But as my world shrank, it also grew hugely. I lost the ability to write for a while. I lost the ability to think. I lost the ability to string a sentence together. But at the back of it all, I had huge family support from Rob, from my amazing kids, my mother Julia, my sister Rachel, and so many friends who stood there beside me. When I regained the ability to write, I swore it was going to play a far bigger part in my life than it had been. I'd been writing since I was a child. A lot of my writing focused on other people. At one stage I had a children's theatre group and I wrote and adapted shows for that. In various schools, I wrote for performances. I wrote showcases. I wrote tributes for principals who were moving on or colleagues who were retiring. I joined writers' groups, but over the last number of years, writing has become a much, much bigger part of my world. In the early days of my illness, I found it very hard to describe what it was like when you can't actually rely on yourself to speak, when you've lost your memories, your sense of cohesion, and you're not quite sure what's going on. And so I wrote a poem that might explain it a little bit. I called it Sieved Sludge. Like water through a sieve, jumbled, my thoughts flow wildly, pop, pop. Ah, I miss my head, it's scrambled. Long-learned icicles of knowledge melted out of reach, plip, plop, like water through a sieve, jumbled. Clouds of colour drifting, then exploded, scents stolen, dangled out of reach, slip, slop. Ach, I miss my head, it's scrambled. Half-thoughts blurred, pictures danced and teased, swirling non-stop like water through a sieve, jumbled. Staring in mirrored glass, hopeless, vanished, fading out into a blurry teardrop. Ach, I miss my head, it's scrambled. Girl dragged into greying clouds, vanquished by moving unsteady thoughts that flip-flop like water through a sieve, jumbled. Ach, I miss my head, it's scrambled. I'm glad to have my head back, by the way. It has been a beautiful evening. I thank you all so sincerely for being with me, not just tonight, but on the journey that has brought me here. I look forward to writing much more, and I want to thank each one of you so sincerely for the effort that you've made to be here tonight. A special word of thanks to Rob. You're just my rock, and that's it. And to Jack, to Ava, and to Grace, who always inspire me to crank it up and keep going. Thank you very much.
One more, please.
One for the road.
We don't have any more. We don't have
thanks to everyone for coming, to Revival Press, obviously, and to everyone that made the evening so special. And thank you everyone for coming, and good night and safe home.
Yeah.